What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome to the MKO Pugilism Boxing channel where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification, put that on all. So let's get into this one. Anthony Joshua was interviewed over the past weekend by Kugan Cassius, IFL TV. This took place over in Dubai. Joshua was attending the fight, supporting Ohara Davies over there. And this interview was quite an interesting one, as it can be with Anthony Joshua, because he's one of those guys that he does kind of talk in riddles. Even the 1 hour interview he done with Kugan Cassius after the loss to Usyk, that wasn't too long ago, but yeah, it was quite an odd one and lots of cryptic language. So I'm just going to talk to you a bit about what was said in that interview and what exactly is AJ on about? What is Anthony Joshua on about? Because Kugan Cassius, he directly asked him, what do you think about this step aside money? Is this something that you're going to do? What of this deal? Because obviously there's been lots of rumors going around about Joshua stepping aside and allowing Fury to fight Usyk for undisputed all the bouts. But anyway, because that would have been the plan anyway in the beginning, I think, for Joshua to beat Usyk, Fury to beat Wilder, and then they fight for undisputed. Obviously, those plans were upset. So now there's this idea floating around from various sources that there may be a step aside offer for Joshua, take the money, sit out, and then maybe fight the winner or maybe fight Usyk after, whatever. So AJ was asked about this thing directly, and when he was first asked by Kugan about this, he said as I quote, says, "People know not to come to me with that BS." He said that, well, it may have come to my team, but my team, they know not to come to me with that at the minute. So first, when he was asked about this, he was just like, well, it hasn't come to me directly. My team knows, don't come to me with that BS. It's not, basically it was very firm and basically acting as if to say, well, this is something I would never do. And then Kugan Cassidy pressed him again. He said, look, is this something that you would never consider, even, for any amount of money? Of was sort of referring to, you're telling me there's no money, no amount of money large enough that you would consider stepping aside. And then AJ goes on to say, he said, the street style now, let me be real with you, at this stage of my career, it's not about money. So he went on to say, look, Kugan said to him, look, so is there no amount of money that you're going to do it for? You'd never consider this? And then AJ goes on to say, look, let me be real, this stage of my career, it's not about money. So that was another interesting one. And then he went on to talk about Joshua. This is where it gets a little bit confusing, because from so far it seemed like, okay, he's firm, he's made his decision, which is what I thought when we're talking about step aside. I thought he'd never take it, never consider it. But then it got a bit more confusing, because he was then sort of asked a bit more about it and he was trying to explain. He said, AJ goes on to say, sort of a loose quote here, that he said, you got to look at what I want out of the game. Number one thing he said he wants respect. Number two, he said he wants to go down as a throwback fighter. He wants to go back down as a throwback fighter in history that fought the absolute best in their division, that always fought the best available competition. He said he wants his child, his son, to be proud of him. He wants his cousin to be proud of him. So he wants to go down in history as a throwback fighter, fought the best in their division. He wants to have the best available resume, and he wants to be a 3-time heavyweight champ. And he said that this step aside money doesn't seem to go in line with that. Step aside doesn't seem to go in line with being a great and, being a throwback fighter and fighting the best. He was saying, he was at least suggesting that by him stepping aside, that would take away a bit from his legacy, or take away from him being what he wants to be, this throwback fighter idea. But then he goes on to say later in the interview, he goes on to say, again, let me be real with you. I want to go down as one of the smartest businessmen in boxing. And that line there kind of reminds me of, it made me feel like I'm listening to Floyd Mayweather, because Floyd Mayweather always would say this thing, yeah, I make smart investments. Yeah, I'm a smart businessman. Yeah, he kind of made this whole thing trend of being your own boss and not needing the promoters and whatnot. So it kind of reminded me of him. So Joshua goes, yeah, let me be real with you. I want to go down as one of the smartest businessmen in boxing. And then he went on to cite a few guys' names who hadn't been smart with their money. He said, I've seen Holyfield, Holyfield obviously has lost a lot of money. He came back recently on Triller. He got knocked out by the MMA guy. He could barely hold himself up, because obviously Holyfield he's got to be about 60. He's got to be, if he's not 60, he's about 59. He's in tremendous shape, but recently he came back and it was quite embarrassing, and it was horrible to see a legend like Holyfield go out like that. So Joshua goes on, he said, look, I've seen Holyfield. Obviously Holyfield, we know he's lost a lot of money, houses, and there's a lot of stuff with the kids and whatnot. He said, I've seen Holyfield, I've seen Tyson. Obviously, we know Tyson made hundreds of millions of dollars, but also probably lost hundreds of millions of dollars, was ripped off by Don King and other hangers-on and stuff like that. So obviously, Tyson, although Tyson is not broke, I'm sure he's not desperate for money, but he has frittered away loads of money throughout his career. So he cited him. He cited Riddick Bowe as well. And Riddick Bowe is a guy that I think, I'm not 100% sure of his situation, but from what I've heard, he's probably struggling for money at this moment. I think, to the best of my knowledge, I think Bowe is struggling for money. And obviously he cited his example because, Riddick, this is a former heavyweight champion of the world. This is a guy that, between him and Holyfield, just between their fights, tens of millions of dollars you're talking. So these guys, Tyson, Holyfield, Bowe, including Bowe, out of all of them, might have made the least money, but he still would have made tens of millions of dollars. And AJ here obviously is alluding to the fact that, look, I don't want to be like these guys who frittered away their millions. I want to be sensible. I want to be one of the smartest businessmen who doesn't lose his money. So perhaps he wants to be like a guy like, I think Marvin Hagler, pretty sensible with his money. Sugar Ray Leonard's still alive today, and he's still got his millions. He's still been quite smart. I would say, even guys like, there's other guys out there as well who's done all right for themselves. So he wants to be like that. He even said, look, even NFL players, they end up broke at the end of their career. And he goes on to say, look, if the money's right, then we have to look at it. So he's gone from saying it's about respect, he wants a throwback fighter, blah, blah, blah. Towards the latter part of the interview, he's now gone into saying, well, he wants to also be the smartest businessman, and if the money's right, he'd have to consider it. He has to look at it, whatnot. But then he goes on to say later in the interview, but respect for me has a lot more value than just money. So he goes all around the houses. It's actually quite strange and quite confusing, because he goes from saying it's not about money, my team knows not to come at me with this step aside deal, and then he goes on to say he wants to be the smart businessman. Then later on, it's down the line in the interview, about probably halfway through, he says, but respect for me has more value than just money. So he's kind of changing his mind now, saying, well, I would rather have the respect than the money. So that kind of makes it strange. But then, at a later point in the interview, he goes on to, referring to step aside money, goes on to say, but this to step aside might make sense from a business perspective. So it's all it's all over the place. I mean, for me overall, it's an interesting interview, worthwhile watching at least. But yeah, he does kind of send a confusing message. I mean, for me, for my opinion of it, it seems as if he's at least going to consider stepping aside in order to allow Fury to fight Usyk. Maybe someone in his team might be able to convince him of that. This is not something I was thinking sort of earlier on in the year and in the immediate aftermath. I mean, but I would say that for him to step aside, for him to allow Fury to take on Usyk, I think that would be a smart business decision. That would be a smart decision for his career anyway, because it's tactically very difficult to beat someone like Usyk and to plan and whatnot, and he might actually need a few confidence boosting fights. So for me, if he does take the step aside money and allow Fury and Usyk to fight, he could make it a deal where he gets a guaranteed shot at whoever wins that fight. And I think that for me would make a lot of sense for AJ. And what he could do is maybe he could fight someone else in the interim, and then, you know, whenever Fury and Usyk does take place, he then takes on the winner once he's had a bit of a confidence booster. Some sort of fight where it's not quite the top 3 in the heavyweight division, but maybe, you know, someone in the top 10, top 15, take on a few guys like that, get his confidence back. If he has taken on a new trainer, get used to the new trainer, and then have your fight against the winner of Usyk Fury, coming with the right mindset. And I think that might actually serve him quite well. So I think the step aside thing, yeah, it's not the it's not the warrior's code, it's not the sort of fighter's mentality thing to do, but I think in terms of his career, in terms of him having the best chance to beat Usyk, I'm saying he probably needs a bit of time. And, you know, if he's considering a new trainer or any new changes in his team, he should give himself a bit of time and try and get used to that setup. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about this interview and the kind of cryptic messages from AJ. What do you think he's on about? Do you think he's going to take the step aside money, or do you think he's just going to continue with the original plan and just fight Usyk in this immediate rematch? Let me know what you think, and until next time, it's MKO Pugilism, over and out.